Hey, Browns fans, welcome back with another edition of Brownie Breakdowns. Anthony and I have been chomping at the bit to get back to it. We haven't had games now in, 2-3 weeks? I've lost track. I've lost all track of time since we've had a chance to actually break down a football game. So we're back with a special edition of the podcast, breaking down the top 10 plays of 2023. Anthony, I'm glad to be back behind the microphone and on the screen here with you. I'm looking forward to seeing what we kind of put together here for our top 10 plays.
Yeah, it's awesome to be back on, and it's such a bummer. The season ends, that last game happens, and then everything just stops. And that's the nature of the beast, man. That's the worst part about NFL teams is we're gonna look at next year's team. It's gonna be nothing the same, or nothing will be the same from last year's team to next year's, and that's the beauty of it. But going back through it and watching some of the games and just kind of reliving some of the fun times that we had this season was a blast. And I think we got a great list to share with our fans here.
Yeah, I we could go and break down Ravens Chiefs if people wanted to, but I think people are sick of the Chiefs. So we're going to stick to the Browns. We're going to have some fun with this. We've put together a definitive list. Anthony and I kind of thought through the season, reflected on some of the top plays and top moments. And listen, I want to be clear. This was not an easy process because there are a lot of memorable moments, and especially in a season that the Browns really were just resilient in general with all the injuries and all these different things. There are a ton of moments that I wish we could have included. Yeah. Jerome Ford had a couple nice, really big plays. The long touchdown run against the Colts, I'll tell you right now, like that one's not in there. Like there's just some that when we got to the chopping block, the table, we were like, we got to get rid of this one. We got to get rid of this one. We just didn't have enough room. We didn't have enough time. We don't want to spend too long doing this with you. So this is our list. I think it mimics to an extent some of the plays that the Browns had as their top 10 that they released a couple weeks ago. Or actually, I think they released it earlier this week. But I'm excited to kind of go one by one here and take us through. Do we have an honorable mention, by the way?
We didn't do the honorable mentions because there's too many to count. But dude, going back through it, and we even picked up. I was thinking through this. We picked up coverage on Browns Digest. Would have been after the bye week. So Colts, week or against the Colts was our first game.
No, 49ers. 49ers was the first game.
Yeah. So right after the bye, we took over coverage of Browns Digest, and going back through and watching games, like we could have had 4 or 5 clips from the Bengals game in week 1 and a couple in week 2. It's like, hey, there were so many great moments from this season. And that was one takeaway I had. The other was when this team is at full strength, holy cow. I was watching that Bengals game in week 1. Like watching Nick Chubb run is watching like a different sport than what we're now used to. Not that Jerome Ford had a bad year by any means, or he still had some electrifying plays, but it's like, holy cow, you get him in there. You get the team that was built to that was built this year. The injuries were just so insane, and it was just wild to watch where the team was at. And then as we kind of clip through all the entire season, kind of where they ended up.
It's unfortunate we didn't get Nick Chubb around long enough to have him featured in this segment, but I'm sure, assuming he's back with the Browns next year, that is a topic of conversation, I guess. But assuming he's back with the Browns, we should have more for you next year in terms of the Nick Chubb highlights. Let's not waste any more time. Let's start this list. I will tell you the first entry on the Browns Digest top 10 here is from week 10, and you're going to get a common theme. And I think it's rightfully so. Like when you think about the Browns season, I think one of the definitive games people are going to go back to and think about is this game right here. So we have sort of highlighted that with a number of entries from this game that you're going to see in this top 10 list. But this was number 10 on our list.
Yeah, this is a good place to start it. And like setting the scene for this, this is week 10. The Browns are kind of, trying to work their way into it. Remember, the start of this game was just brutal. We started with the Kyle Hamilton pick 6. And, as the year went along, he proved to be one of the best players, in all of the NFL. And he's a freaky guy. And, this game got off to a horrible start. And then the Browns just kind of chipped away. And we go here to our 10th play. On our top 10 was DeShaun with a massive scramble. And this was when, before we knew about the broken shoulder, this was when, things started to turn the corner and you're like, oh gosh, if we can get this, we have a chance. But here come the Ravens. This is late in the fourth quarter. Remember, this is the final drive of the game. And I believe this is either second or third down. But there's some pressure off the top left side or the top right side. And I remember just talking to you about this right when it happened. Like, this is vintage DeShaun Watson. Like,
Yeah.
hey, this something breaks down. You don't throw hot. Maybe this was his responsibility. He probably should have thrown maybe something up here. But when you're so athletic and you're just that elite kind of a guy, you make something happen out of nothing. And here you are getting 15 yards and getting, most importantly, getting into field goal range with a chance to beat the Baltimore Ravens, who were the best team in the AFC at that point.
I think another reason it was important to put this play in is because, as everyone obviously has this love affair with Joe Flacco, and rightfully so, we can't forget that DeShaun Watson played a role in this season and the Browns getting to where they were. Flacco was 4-1. Technically, DeShaun was 5-1 in games he started, but that Colts game, kind of weird. He didn't really play that much. So really, he was 4-1. And this was by far like the game that defined his season. And this play right here kind of defined, I think, him as a player. Like, there was a lot of questions going into this one about his toughness and does he really want to play and all this different stuff. And you find out about the shoulder after the fact, and he makes a play like this. Like, I think he answered a lot of that, which is why I thought it was a worthy entry for the top 10. So,
and remember too, in that fourth quarter, he played a perfect fourth quarter. He was like 13 for 13, threw for about 140 yards, a touchdown, and had a big play like this. This right here is a massive play, and you just remember coming off of that game, being like, hey, he's got his confidence back, and you can kind of feel it and hear it. And then 2 days later, he gets the season-ending news, which was such a bummer. But at this point in time, if you could just go back to this moment in time. This was like, hey, the Browns got something and we could make a run.
Everyone was feeling good about DeShaun Watson back then. Let's go to number 9. This one takes us back to week 8. This play, it wasn't one that I think like you'll look back on and be like, man, that play defined the season necessarily, but just a freak play from a big guy on the defensive line here against the Seahawks. We're highlighting Mo Hurst here. I think you guys might know where we're going with this.
Yeah, this was fun. This was one that you nominated, and I had totally forgotten about because, again, this Seahawks game, right, was one to forget about how it ended. But this play right here was just totally spectacular. And Mo Hurst, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. He's a guy that, at least in my opinion, is one I hope that is returning in the Cleveland Browns next year. But, this right here, engaging with the center, connecting with him, dropping back, deflecting the ball up in the air, stopping it right here, that's amazing enough. Like, that's an amazing play from a defensive tackle who started the play with both of his hands in the dirt, but he doesn't stop there. He gets eyes on it, tracks it, then
one-handed
hauls that thing in. Look at that.
I think that play alone is enough to warrant him getting re-signed by the Browns. I'm just going to say it. I mean, incredible. He was on way to having a career season before the pec injury that kind of derailed his year at the end there, and he went on the IR. I actually wrote a piece about the top 5 Browns, specifically Browns free agents that Andrew Berry should work to bring back, and I have Maurice Hurst on it. Defensive line depth is so important. He was a big part of that. He was rotating in constantly, and you saw his impact like this play, but in other plays as well throughout the season. Definitely worth, I think, bringing back Mo Hurst.
And Spence, too, like when you hear the guys talk about this guy, he's such a good locker room guy for this Browns team. And especially in a year where things weren't ever going the right way for Cleveland. Guys like Mo Hurst, and even being his first year with the Browns, everyone talks about how important he was to have in the locker room. And, you get plays like this every once in a while. And then towards the end of the year, he started doing the belly thing a little bit more. And he became a fan favorite, honestly, in Cleveland. And you hope to have him back. But this play in and of itself was pretty darn special.
It was a fun one. We hope to have him back in Cleveland next year. We'll see if it happens. Let's go to number 8. And we fast forward now to week 17. This was the big game, locking up a playoff berth in front of the home crowd. Couple plays, couple moments that we'll highlight from this game, but this one specifically on the defensive side of the ball, and a rookie at that in Ronnie Hickman.
Yeah, a guy who is going to be a piece for Cleveland here moving forward. Just stepped into his role, come from Ohio State. Obviously, know he's prepared, but an undrafted free agent. And when Juan Thornhill went down and Rodney McLeod went down, like, he stepped up and became a focal point of this defense. And like, this game is one that, years to come, you and I hopefully are telling our kids about. And
the night Joe Flacco clinched the playoff berth in a Browns uniform. Yeah.
On Thursday night football, we're locked in, we're the primetime game. Like, and then you point to a play like this where watch him in the back end, just a one high safety. They're going to go off a play action. And this is a concept you see a bunch. You get a deep route over top. You're going to get some kind of a post up in here, and then you get a dig route, and then he's just reading the eyes of the quarterback. He's just sitting there lurking and doing his job, and then bang, takes it, makes the interception. But that's not enough for him. He curves and weaves and bobs, and bang, there he is, right across the end zone. One of my favorite parts here, Spence, we both cover Ohio State, but you get Ohio State Buckeye Ronnie Hickman and Garrett Wilson, who were former teammates with each other.
Chasing after each other.
It's just, really cool where Garrett kind of pulls off. You see it right there. He could have made the tackle, but he pulls off. He's like, that's my guy. Let him go score. Pretty cool.
Hopefully the Jets didn't catch that, but
right. Look, he even goes hands. Look at this. He goes hands up. Like, I'm going to let my guy score. Pretty cool, but
that is funny.
Watch this. He crosses the end zone, and the camera starts to shake, and he spikes the ball, and he starts going crazy, man.
Well, and Garrett also gives him like the pad on the shoulder pads there, the front of the shoulder pads. So
here you go, right? Right there.
Yeah, really cool play. And at that moment, it made the game. At that time, they missed the PAT, but it was 20-7, and you kind of felt like at that point, man, this they came ready to go. They're just going to roll tonight. And then you got a little bit nervous when they only put up 3 in the second half, but the Jets' offense was just not good enough to really do anything to get back into that game. But yeah, this was kind of like a euphoric moment of, holy crap, like this team came to play. They showed up in a primetime game, and they really want to lock up that playoff berth tonight. And yeah, a momentum play for sure.
And even before that, right, like the drive before, remember Cleveland stalled out inside the goal line. They went for it on 4th down. They didn't get it. You're up 14-7. And the last time the Jets had the football, they went right down the field and scored. So you're like, it goes from, the lowest of lows of like, here we go. Same old Browns. They're going to lose to a team they shouldn't beat, to bang, very next couple plays, Ronnie Hickman makes this interception and takes it back to the house. And you're like, it's about to be a party down by the stadium. And a party it was.
We'll come back to this game a little bit later on, but let's go to number 7 on the list, and we go back to Indianapolis, week 7. Actually, first time we're going to Indianapolis. I apologize. Week 7 of the season, and listen, in a game that DeShaun Watson started and only threw 5 passes, and then you turn things over to P.J. Walker, and this game I think was maybe one of the more bizarre games of the season. Nobody expected Gardner Minshew to just run all over the Browns defense the way he did. Nobody expected this game to basically become a shootout between P.J. Walker and Gardner Minshew the way it did. But the defense for the Browns also played a huge role in this. And I honestly think like when you look back on this game, it'll be defined by 2 things. We don't have any like big special teams plays on here, but Dustin Hopkins' season, he deserves a shout out. He had 5 field goals in this, or 4 field goals of 50 yards, I believe, or 4 total. I got to go back and look it up, but he had this was the game where he hit multiple 50-yarders. Mm-hmm. He hit his career-long 58-yarder in this one, and the other big piece in this was Myles Garrett. He took this game over. We have a couple plays from him from this game that we'll highlight, but this one to start, very worth highlighting, the strip sack in the end zone that obviously leads to a score for the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, this game was just a total roller coaster, 39-38 final, and the Browns don't win it without number 95, and you'll see him. He's at the top of our defensive line right here. And, man, like, what do you do? Like, when you're looking at this and you're an offensive tackle, like Myles Garrett, the freakiest looking guy in all of the NFL, just in a 4-point sprinter stance. Like, he looks like he's about to run in the Olympics. And, it's like, hey, I don't know what I'm going to do. And that poor right tackle hardly gets a hand on him. Excuse me, it's a tight end. Barely touches him. Then he gets through the right tackle, and then he gets Gardner Minshew, and it's a scramble for the football. Tony Fields, my man's got 2 touchdowns in 2 seasons. He jumped on it for the score. But just just an unbelievable play from a guy who I think the next day, Pat McAfee's booth is right here. And I think that they had him on the next show and it's like, dude, you're an alien out there, man. Like, you're not – human beings aren't supposed to be built like you.
Yeah, in a season that could be sort of defined for Myles, or I guess the cherry on top of it for Myles, of winning Defensive Player of the Year. He was the Pro Football Writers of America's Defensive Player of the Year. We'll see if he gets it for the AP version at the NFL Honors next week. But in a season where that could be the accolade that he gets and receives, and rightfully so, it very much worth putting Myles Garrett in this top 10. And this play was one of his biggest of the season. and it's crazy because, like I said, this was the one game that you kind of look back on and you realize like it was in flux because of just some weird circumstances, not great quarterback play really, and a game that the defense kind of didn't play their best. Like this was aside from that Houston game in the playoffs, like this might have been, looking back, their worst defensive performance of the season otherwise. And you get Myles Garrett stepping up in a couple key moments that kind of flipped the game on its head and in favor of the Browns. And this was obviously one of them. So I think definitely worth remembering when you kind of go through the schedule. That was the Myles Garrett game, right? Like that was the game that he kind of won for you. And that's, it speaks to just his value. He can single-handedly win you a game like this. So it's a good one to certainly feature on here.
Absolutely. I pause it here because this was one of my favorite shots of the Browns like this season, with the crowd going nuts in enemy territory. It's like all the Browns fans are right here, and it's the dog pile for the touchdown. Just an amazing play, and everything you said's dead on. Like even in this game, this was during the stretch where the refs were on our side for whatever reason, and we got kind of lucky towards the end of the game. And you never apologize for a win, but that win in Indy had a lot to do with number 95.
It was 4 field goals for Dustin Hopkins, by the way, 3 of them from 50-plus yards and his career high 58. So, Dustin Hopkins game as well. Let's go to number 6. We're about halfway done here. We go back to Week 10. Again, a game that we've said sort of defined the Browns season, and this another defensive play that sort of turned the scales in the favor of the Browns.
Yeah, and Greg Newsome gets one here, and here he is at the bottom of your screen. And it's so fun to come back and watch this Week 10 game. Like the Ravens were the 1 seed in the AFC, and they just played a couple days ago in the AFC Championship game. And this was one where the Browns came out of it and was like, hey, this was everything you wanted to see. We got down early, played bad early, continue to fight, continue to battle, continue to grind. And a big play like this happens where everyone kind of does the right thing. You get Obo, who really makes the play. He's just bull rushing his guy back into right into Lamar's lap. Lamar has to hesitate. He gets his hands up in the air, and then Greg Newsome swoops right in, grabs the interception, and takes it the distance. His first career interception against Lamar Jackson, and he takes it back to the house. So I
remember being stunned that was his first.
Yeah.
The first time he's done that, because you would think like, oh, Greg Newsome, he's been in the league long enough, he's made some plays, so for that to be the first one, he gets it in that fashion, in that moment in a game where you're trying to kind of battle back, and they made Lamar look sort of, I don't want to say mediocre, but they made him look average, or they made him look like just another quarterback out there. In this game specifically, that was one of a couple turnovers that he had, and yeah, this one got you right back in the mix in this game. And brings you basically to the towards the end of it, where you get a chance to come back and complete the comeback with that drive that we obviously highlighted earlier with DeShaun Watson. But yeah, like this was such a tipping point and such an important play, because you score that touchdown on the pick six, and suddenly you're talking about being back in this game completely. You're basically going down to tie it up. And that was the funny part about it, was the missed PAT from Hopkins. And you're like, oh no, this isn't going to happen again. For like, you come all the way back, you have a chance to tie the game at 31, and he misses the PAT, but it didn't end up mattering. They get the ball back again, and they deliver on the final drive, which I think is a nice segue into our number 5 play. One more time, we're going to come back to this game, because Megs, if there's a play that I think defined the season most, this one might be it.
This is just a spectacular. This is Cleveland Browns football. We're going to run it right up the middle, and then everybody is going to get in there. Elijah Moore is going to get in there and turn his little legs. All the offensive linemen are going to get in there and really make the push. Jerome Ford makes a guy miss. Then he's going to start dragging guys. He gets his momentum stop. That helped me out here. I'm not a math major. 33-yard line. And then here we go. The boys just start pushing. Joel gets in there.
He gets the first down.
Yep, first down. And then probably my favorite part of the season happens right here. James Hudson, backup tackle, coming into play. Watch this. He comes out of it. He's like, let's go. Like, this is awesome. Because this was like they were able to, at this point, DeShaun runs around, takes a knee on the next play. They run the clock all the way down to 3 seconds, and they had a chance to win the game on a walk-off field goal because of this play. And instead of kicking it from let's say you get no yards, you kick it from the 40, right? Let's say they just kick it from right here. At the 33, you add 17 yards, onto the field goal for the 10
Right.
yards in the end zone and 7 yards back. That's a 50-yarder if it gets stopped right here. Instead, we gain, I don't know, 10 more yards with just a whole bunch of heart right there, just pulling him forward and, kind of sealing this thing.
That play came a couple plays after that DeShaun Watson run that we played for you earlier. It was number 10 on our list. And yeah, like I said, it's not going to be number one because it's not like the flashiest, fanciest play, I don't think. But I think in a season that was defined by injuries and resiliency and overcoming all these different things, this one I think spoke to just the togetherness of this group, the fact that they were willing to do anything they could to win, and including push this as I think we dubbed it, our site dubbed it the Cleveland Caravan. This kind of push of Jerome Ford. And you're right, I think the James Hudson sort of celebration at the end is the cherry on top of it. But a really fun play that sets you up with the maybe defining win of the season, kicking the 33 the field goal to make it 31-33, and you win it. Just fantastic stuff. I think this was worth being on there. I'm glad it makes the top 10, but we now go to the exclusive of the exclusive, if you will. This is the creme de la creme from here. We take you to week 15, a big game against the Bears, where the Browns also had to pull off a comeback. And David Njoku, this was where we kind of got into the weeds, because we made our list and we were like, I don't think we have a David Njoku play on here, but he was so important to the season. We had to get him in. I think this play was one of his best of the season.
Yeah, it truly was. And this game, right, this is really when he started clicking, kind of with Joe Flacco. And this play specifically, within the situation of the game, the Bears were kind of getting after the Browns, and they were really causing havoc, because this was the first game where Cleveland's injuries started to really show themselves. The tackles were getting dominated, with the Bears' elite defensive line. And Joe Flacco, truthfully, was starting to kind of turn into a pumpkin, right? He was like, hey, the Cinderella story, and he was like coming back down to earth. He was throwing some interceptions. He had that really bad one when Njoku was wide open in the end zone, and, a couple bad plays. But, to his credit, and the reason why you have guys like this is they're so veteran that they know the game's not over until it's 000. And that is a perfect way to describe this game, as we remember how it happened. But in this specific play, this is just awesome stuff by 85. Like right here, everything's covered. Okay, and Flacco's rolling out. And then once Flacco doesn't look at the throw, once this cornerback or this defender turns his head to Joe Flacco, as a quarterback, you're taught, if you see the back of his head, the back of the corner's head, your guy's wide open, because this guy doesn't have any idea of where the ball is going to be. And he just lets one rip to Njoku, and Njoku just goes and dunks.
Mossed on.
Dunks on him right there. Bang. Gets that toe tap. And then this cameraman right here, either one of these guys gets the picture of the year with him holding the ball, looking right back up at the camera. It was pretty darn sweet.
I love this play. You get Flacco out of the pocket, and it kind of spoke to late in the season just the magic that he kind of had to him. Like, there's only so many players that are going to put the ball right where it needs to be like that. I mean, this is kind of what started that conversation, just about like Flacco being giving you the best quarterback play you've seen in Cleveland since the team came back in '99, or at least the most consistent. And I mean, this was like pure just talent from Flacco, knowing where to put the ball and trusting his guy to make a play. And same thing with Njoku. Like, you talk about a guy who's been through sort of a roller coaster during his time in Cleveland. And this year in particular, like the burns going into week 4, and he still played that game. He hurt his toe late in the season as well and played through it, and he had to get stitches. So like, this was another play that defined a really, really good season for both those guys. But an impressive one in a game that I also think, like the Ravens game, you look back on and remember like that was an important one for where this season kind of ended up. We'll come back to it, so I don't want to give everything away. But let's go to number 3. We got week 17 back against the Jets. And we hit on this game a little bit earlier, but this play I think is the one that really brought the house down and let everybody know that the Browns were going to be going to the playoffs this year.
Yeah, this is just amazing. Like, and we didn't have a Brownie breakdowns for this game. We had some other stuff going on, so we couldn't get to it. But like, watching this play back, you're like, oh my gosh. First and foremost, Joe Flacco takes a right hook to the face. You can't quite see it, But I remember this being like, oh, there's going to be definitely a flag here. But when he scrambles out, man, he's like, right now, he's like, oh, maybe I go run this thing.
Yeah, he's got green.
He's like, maybe I just go run this thing 60 yards to the crib. Instead, he's like, uh-oh, my guy, my running back, Jerome Ford, he's got a better chance to do so. And he catches it. This play is great for so many reasons. But one thing that I want to call out here is before I let it run is watch right here where my cursor is. You're going to see Marquise Goodwin. Marquise Brown. We'll get to that later. But Marquise Goodwin.
I just wrote a piece about him today. If you're interested, over at brownsdigest.com.
Yeah. Marquise Goodwin here. This was one of my favorite things. We tweeted it out and it got some run, and they even commented on it. All the players did about the heart of this team. Goodwin doesn't have any catches all year long, 3 catches, but
the block.
He blocks. He makes a huge block on Solomon Thomas at the goal line. Like, this play was like everything you've ever wanted in Cleveland sports. Like, this got Flacco to 300 yards darn near in the first half. This got this place rocking. The crowd was going crazy. Jerome Ford going into scoring. Like, this was when it was party time in Cleveland. Like, yeah, we're going to the playoffs.
I think the way you summed it up was great. Just kind of like a pure will type thing. And that was the story of the season. I think in general, if Ford runs a guy over to get there, you get the block by Marquise Goodwin, who didn't have a major role in this offense, but is still out there making plays for his teammate. That's the unselfishness that this team talked about all year. And it was good to see it kind of all come together on this play. And you're right. This was kind of a nice moment because you just lost Elijah Moore. I think actually a play before in the game. And you were kind of nervous then, like, well, there's no more Amari Cooper. There's no Elijah Moore. Who the hell is Flacco going to throw to the rest of the game if this stays close? Like, it made you a little bit nervous. But then you get a play like that, and it made the lead too insurmountable for a bad Jets offense, and everyone kind of knew what was going to happen. And that kind of second half had a few tense moments where you're like, okay, what if the Jets come back? But I think for the most part, this kind of sealed the deal and let everybody know, hey, Cleveland Browns are going to the playoffs. We got 2 plays left. Let's go back to week 7. In Indianapolis. We talked about Myles Garrett taking this game over. And listen, the special teams this year were really, really good. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't have at least one special teams play on there. And the fact that this one involves Myles Garrett makes it twofold a very worthy nomination for the list.
The Myles Garrett game. I mean, this doesn't need an introduction. This play is just ridiculous. Like, come on. Jumps over an offensive line from he jumps over a human being from a 4-point stance. Like, I challenge anybody watching this, listening to this. I challenge myself to just
this is the angle right here.
Stand and do a box jump to land or to jump over a 6-foot tall box. Like, you've got to be out of your mind to do that.
And he does it like you're not allowed to do that over the center anymore is the rule. But he did it over like the guard, so it was fine. And
you're not allowed to make contact. Like, if he would have made contact with anybody on the line, it's a penalty. But he clears everything, doesn't touch anybody, jumps straight up and blocks the kick. Like, are you serious?
Unreal. Like, just one of those plays that lead those games for him, and one of the plays that leaves you just awe-inspired that this guy plays in the Cleveland Browns. He is something special. I love that we put this one on here because it's probably another one of those plays that I don't know if it's forgotten completely, but it probably doesn't make like most people's top 10 lists. I think it's super worthy because I mean, you don't see this very often, and you get it from that player, and it's also a special teams play, which deserves highlighting because special teams are great this year.
Well, and too, like, this is one where like, oh yeah, he did that way back in week 6 or whatever week it was. I keep forgetting, but like, oh yeah, Myles did that. But then you see it again, and you're like, what in the heck? Like, this isn't a human play. Like, you're like this. You just forget like how incredible Myles Garrett is.
Also, I'll say this too. Myles does a lot of impressive things. But sometimes you forget about some of the impressive things because he makes it seem so normal. Yeah. Like, this should not seem normal, but for him, it's essentially normal. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. All right, that brings us, as we get ready to wrap this thing up, to our final play, number 1 on the top 10 plays of the 2023 season for the Cleveland Browns. We're taking you back to week 15. This throw, Megs,
unbelievable.
Chef's kiss. And I know you appreciate it as a quarterback. One of the best throws you will ever see in your life. I don't care who it is. Mahomes, Brady. Somehow it came out of the arm of Joe Flacco. Yes, he is elite, but unbelievable throw. And I will never forget this play. Like, this throw was incredible.
The way I remember this play is, just where I was watching it, I was a little delayed, and the Browns never tweet like immediately after a score unless it's a
Yeah.
massive play. And I'll never forget it. I'm watching and I must have rewound it earlier and I just see a tweet from the Browns just said Coop with like a million O's. Like Coop. And I'm like, uh-oh. I stood up in my chair and watched this and like this is unbelievable. This throw is in the only spot it could be. You probably, if you run this play back and he does it again, if you ask Joe Flacco, he probably shouldn't have thrown it because this guy's lurking and is probably supposed to intercept this thing, but it doesn't matter.
I mean, that's just pure arm strength, though. Pure arm strength.
Pure arm strength and accuracy. This is my favorite part of it. Like, watch where he decides to throw this. Like, all right, he's deciding right now to throw this football. Like, this is psychotic stuff right here. Amari's not even cleared this guy. He's ripping it. Like, he's in his throwing motion right now. And then watch this window, right? Boom, right there. Are you, dude? He couldn't have walked it out 30 yards and handed it to Amari in a better place than what it is there. He like literally puts it in the breadbasket and truthfully allows Amari to really protect himself.
Yeah.
All three of these defenders are like ball. And instead nobody touches him. And he gives him, it's a runner's football. And he's able to stay in bounds, tightrope, and the crowd goes wild. This is the most amazing throw, you ever see.
Pure arm strength, I think, is the first thing I say. Second thing is just like, that's just really good football IQ. Like he knew that Coop was going to clear that guy, that linebacker, and that he could fit it in there. Now you got to trust yourself. You got to have some confidence to make that throw, but like just great football IQ and just pure arm strength and talent from Flacco all around. Like I will remember this play forever. I also will say before we get out of here, my favorite thing about it really isn't like, yes, the play itself is great, but my favorite thing about it was his reaction after the game was just so nonchalant. He basically was like, yeah, I saw the linebacker and I knew he was going to clear. And I was like, there was a window to get it in there. And it was like, dude, that window was not that big. He made it seem like the window was like, I don't know, like the size of like I don't know, a school bus or like like lengthwise school bus. Like,
look at it.
Unbelievable.
That's your window right there. I mean, that's maybe 10 feet wide, but these are guys running at full speed, closing, and you have to, like, this is a dead space here. So, like, really, truthfully, the window is right here to right there. You probably got, 5 feet side to side? Like, are you kidding me? That's insane.
To me, he made it sound like it was like a bay window, and it was more like a prison cell window.
Yeah.
Like, just tight as it can be. Unbelievable. And I actually think, I don't know how the rest of it lined up with the Browns' top 10 that they pulled out, but I know that play was also their number one top play as well. So we were both in agreement on that one. But let us know what you think about the Browns Digest official top 10 list for 2023, the Cleveland Browns. You can hit us up on Twitter at ADMegs_10 and myself at Spencito_. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know if there's any other entries. We will turn this into an article and we'll put it out on Twitter. We'll share the video with you guys. Maybe we'll clip a couple and let you know like where they ranked on the playlist, and you can let us know if you had any entries or any snubs that you feel like we didn't get to. But be sure to continue following along with all things Browns over at the Browns Digest YouTube page, where some of you might be watching this. And also at brownsdigest.com, we got a ton of stuff coming your way throughout the offseason. Hopefully more iterations of this show specifically. But we appreciate you guys following along as always. And be sure to keep in the loop with all things Cleveland Browns.